Frances, you've been a consistent advocate for women in politics for many years, but I'm really interested to know who influenced you along the way.
It's kind of very gradual, Brian. I was exposed to sort of thinking about women in society, feminism, all those famous writers. We had activists over here when I was in the WPA. We did these amazing conferences in Dublin. It was kind of the time that was in it, the late 80s, early 90s. We were doing these enormous conferences in the old juries in Dublin, 1,000, 1,500 women at them. We were covering every topic. We were looking at the environment. We were looking at, LGBTQ rights. We were looking at why the hell are there no women in politics? Why have you got such a low percentage? If women don't make the decisions, somebody else does. And so my kind of knowledge base, if you like, I'm a bit kind of academic about these, my knowledge base got much better. I understood what was going on and I saw the exclusion, the lack of decision making. I held the first conference on women in decision making in Ireland. I introduced the concept of equality proofing issues. Then when I was chair of the Women's Council, we got Charlie Haughey to do the second commission on women. It sat for 4 years with Judge Mellick Carroll in charge of it and became the Bible of what all governments subsequently have done on childcare, women's health, all these topics, legal rights for women. And it's not so long ago since, we were in a very bad situation in relation to women. It's improved considerably, obviously. Total change in relation to education, changes in other areas, women occupying a totally different place in Irish society now and seen differently, but still a lot of unfinished business. I see it as an unfinished democracy.
So what needs to change there? What needs to change for equality?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of sexist attitudes around still. Less so maybe than there were, but then they're being expressed in other places online, as we know. Children also suffering from that. We still don't have the critical mass. Critical mass of women in decision-making is 40-50% in all arenas. So you need to accelerate. Now, business has done well on that, actually, but they've been pushed along the way by government as well. And the smart businesses know that you make more money if you have more diversity and more women involved. But you asked me about my influences. I think it's really been gradual. I saw all those American politicians from, the Geraldine Ferraras to the Hillary Clintons to other international women who were making a difference. So I think it was that kind of combination. And then I had great friends who supported me. I had good mentors. I think mentoring is really important. I do a lot of mentoring myself. I think you need people who believe in you. And it's one of the greatest privilege. I'm sure it's the same in sport. When people believe in you and people come out canvassing with you, you never forget anyone who comes out canvassing with you. But there's lots of people who like to work behind the scenes. So, then I got support when I went into Fine Gael. Enda Kenny was like really, he appointed me to 3 ministries and appointed me to Tánaiste. So he was sort of a leader that supported me and others as well. So for me, it's a whole combination. There's no one person I can say. It was kind of my exposure to how society works as a social worker. Then it was going into politics and it was, the mentoring and the support I got from different people, from men as well as women. All of that made a difference and it supported me. It's no big, light bulb moment. It was just a gradual seeing that, women are missing out so much and men are missing out. Because men miss out if women are losing out, it affects the whole of society.
So if you were to take some of that knowledge that you have learned,
yes,
how would you pass that on in advice to a female college student studying politics? What does she have to do differently to her male counterparts to forge a way into politics?
I tell you, it's still hard for them. There's more young men involved in the young political sections than there are women. Well, she has to want to do it. Motivation's really important. It's quite demanding, but I think, it's all about being prepared, isn't it? You know that from sport as well. I wouldn't go into a meeting without knowing the outcome I want from it. I'd advise her to be strategic. I'd tell her to go and talk to the people already in position and find out how. I didn't know how politics worked when I was elected, believe it or not. I didn't really know. And not like somebody who came from a political family, like Mary Coughlin or Deirdre Clune or these women. I came from an army background. I knew nothing about it. but I was interested in change, and I knew that change could happen there. And it did for me, and I managed to, create change as well, insofar as I did. So I would encourage her, but I would also say it's very tough. My God, it's really tough. I mean, I would say it's a place where you have the most amazing highs and dreadful lows. I mean, it's a pretty low point when you lose an election. And if you stay in it long enough, you might well lose. And lots of people do. Lots of people give up, exit, because they can't bear the humiliation of losing in public. And it is pretty hard. But worse things can happen in politics than losing an election, as I know as well. So it's very competitive when you're in there, and you always have to be watching your back, watching your seat if you want to stay in it. And if you want to stay in it, you have to be able to count and get the numbers. So it's, I'd say all of that to her. I'd tell her, find out about it, know what you're getting into. And then if you're still interested, go for it. Why not? You can make a difference. And I see all the young people who've come into politics now, and a lot of them are in government. They'd never been in opposition. I did about 19 years in opposition. They think they should get it like that, and they have got it.
That's the modern, Generation Z or whatever it is coming through.
Happens in business. Look at all these young tech, including yourself, Brian, all these young people coming through in business and in politics, and it's that generational change. And their expectations are very high. Like most of my friends and colleagues in Fine Gael now, I mean, the thought of opposition, they've been in government the whole time, their whole career, completely different to the previous generation. So it has its pros and its cons, because I think experience is a good thing in politics. I was 42 when I went in. I had 3 kids under 10. I'd been a social worker. I had a lot of life experience. I'd worked in communities. That all helped me, actually, I think,
I want to talk to you a little bit about leadership. You mentioned you've come from an army background. And I wonder, was that the, potentially the catalyst for some of the things you saw at home, that leadership component? When did you see yourself for the first time as a leader?
God knows. I think I was, probably 100, I mean, that's an interesting thing about leadership. For years, even when I was doing leadership roles, I had no concept of myself as a leader, which is very odd. I think it might be a bit of a female thing as well.
I don't know if it is.
No?
No, because I would say I was the exact same.
Oh, really?
No, I don't think it's specific to that.
Yeah.
I think it's a personality trait.
Yeah. And then like when I interview or meet female CEOs, it's amazing the number of them who never said, I didn't want to be CEO. I just kind of did it and it happened. And I changed career. People have this idea that everyone starts out with this kind of macro plan about leadership. But leadership is often something, I think always something that develops. And when did I start seeing myself as a leader? I suppose unconsciously, or even a bit consciously, when I was chair of the... You see, I always enjoyed doing it so much that I wasn't preoccupied about whether I was a leader or not. I just did it. I loved when I was chairing. I always liked chairing the WPA, chairing the Women's Council, taking on issues, lobbying government, getting an outcome. And that's leadership. And even when you're a TD, you're a kind of a leader, politically in your constituency. You have to be. You have to keep being out there, out front. And you have to keep reinventing yourself in a way, keep staying in touch with the issues. So as I've got older, I've got much more conscious. It's very late in a way. And when you're a minister, I saw myself as a leader. And when I was in Europe, I consciously went out to influence, to change, to get that directive on violence against women passed. I networked to make it happen. My team networked with me. So I suppose as I've got, the answer to that question is really more and more as I've got older, I've seen myself more almost like, if you like, conceptually or understood what it is, what I was doing. I kind of did it kind of naturally, I think. So my sense of leadership, I can articulate it much more now. I mean, I'd want to do it before I die, wouldn't I? So, it's I can articulate it more, and I know what I did to be a leader when I was a leader. I know what it takes in business or in politics. I don't think it's that different. It's networking, it's influencing. In business, it's setting out your priorities, your goals, reaching the bottom line and so on. And it's the same in politics. You have to identify your priorities, and then you have to decide, what are the steps that are needed? Who do you need to influence? in politics? Is it the Attorney General? Is it your department? Because sometimes they go against you. Is it the department? How do you get things done? And so I think business leaders and political leaders have to have a very good sense of systems, of like the different things that impact on decisions. Like no man is an island, no woman is an island. It's all about that kind of, knowing the territory. And I think I'm good at analysing the territory. I've got better at it, obviously. And you learn the hard way too.
You talk about influence. How did working with different party leaders and different Taoiseach influence your style?
I'm not sure it did that much, actually. I mean, I'd experience of three different leaders. I was very naive when I was in UTD under John Bruton. I probably made some mistakes in relation to him. I didn't quite understand the dynamics of the whole situation well enough, and that cost me. And then with Enda, I was more experienced, and the same with Leo. I kind of got on and did my job and just, kept a good relationship. And the relationship with the leader matters. The better the relationship, I think, the more progress you'll make. And of course, then you have heaves that throw the whole thing all over the place, and it's a nightmare. And CEOs depart from companies, and the same thing happens. And there's a whole realignment. And it is, I think I might have said to you already, Michael Noonan's point about, it's all about shifting kind of alliances and relationships. And that's very true of politics. I thought it was a very insightful thing to say. And I guess that can happen in business too.
Is leadership a learned skill?
Do I think some of it is natural, and I think you can learn more about it. You can understand it more. You have to understand personalities as well, I think. I think it's difficult working with people who are very narcissistic. I think that's really difficult. I think you've got to get used to different styles. Is it learned? Some people never learn and they still can succeed. They may not be great leaders, but they just, we see some examples of that now. They're leaders, but not the kind of leaders we'd want, maybe. I think you can, definitely you can, yes, you can learn a lot. I learned a lot from the people who mentored me. I learned about different styles. I have a very good mentor who's written a very good book, which has influenced me a lot, called Time to Think by Nancy Klein. And my leadership style is very, it's very kind of involve everybody, if I'm in a room, I like everybody to talk, everybody in the room. I can't bear these silences and some people saying nothing. And I think, some leaders come in and tell you what you're going to do. Others try and get the team and the group giving of their best. And I think the team and leadership is really about bringing out the leader and everyone else and supporting them to develop. I think I've really enjoyed that enormously. I've done that with a lot of people. And I'm able to do that, I think. I mean, I wouldn't have had the confidence to say this before, but, over in recent years, I would have. But I think that's great leadership. It's all about that team. And then you have people, of course, who operate very independently as well, who are, maybe outliers, very successful as well. Doesn't always, I suppose, have to be teams. But if you're in an organisation like politics or a business, I think it has to be, you have to have that kind of very inclusive approach, I think. Not the old style hierarchical, although it's coming back into fashion.
Building people up to be
exactly
those that one day can take over from you.
Yes.
Your role.
Yes.
That's all. I think that for me, that's real leadership around having the confidence and the understanding and belief around future proofing what's coming down the line, around imparting all of your knowledge and being generous and sharing with that. In my case, the academy members coming through with the knowledge that one day they might take the shirt off your back.
I totally agree with you in terms of, I love, I have a lot of people come to me in politics and say, well, what do you think about this or the other? And you do have a lot of experience. And like you in sport, there is an awful lot. But then you also have to respect that, youth and the sort of freshness and the kind of capabilities. And of course, young people, a lot of them are very, very confident today. Some of them don't know what they don't know, by the way, Brian. Do you ever find that? So, I mean, you do.
Yes, I do sometimes.
For ignorance is bliss, it's folly to be wise. There's a bit of that too. So you have to be modest about it. But no, I think there's great satisfaction in that. And people can, like, even in politics, we've done a lot of mentoring with women. And they all tell us the difference it's made, and they share their experiences, because you can have a lot of the younger women now are having very tough experiences. I was shocked when I heard some of the things they'd had to go through during the election, the general election, in terms of harassment and online, and even people saying things to them that were really pretty hard in person. So, like, it's tough.
Mm. You mentioned earlier on about 2017, and electoral losses are a part of political life, but your resignation in 2017 as Tánaiste, it was different, right? How did those setbacks shape your understanding of what resilience is?
Well, you know what? I felt very fortunate that I wasn't a depressive, because if I had been a depressive, I don't suffer from depression. It really pointed that out to me, but I was certainly traumatized by it. I would say I had a period of post-traumatic stress, definitely. I think if you have a public kind of experience like that, where the media pack are after you and the opposition are after you, and it feels completely unjust. Like, I was in the middle of a trade mission in New York. I was pulled back. I kind of, this all happened in like 10 days. And it was just like, I hardly knew what it was about, because it wasn't truthful the way it was presented. But if you get into the sort of the eye of the storm, which I was in, like, one of my sons kept saying to me, "Mum, why aren't you doing more media? Why don't you go out? Why don't you fight it?" I couldn't. I had to depend on some other people to fight it for me. I did what I could, of course. But it was just a tsunami against me. And it was very traumatic. I mean, I decided myself I had to resign, because otherwise there'd be an election. And I remember one of the public commentators, there was always quite a supporter of mine, saying, she has to go, Brexit has to be sorted. And Brexit was sorted like 4 years later. But these things happen in politics, But that was about the worst thing. I was at the height of my career. I was the most senior woman in Fine Gael. What did I learn about resilience? I got great support from lots of different people. The most amazing people reached out to me, wrote me letters, offered to support me I had to go before the tribunal as well. The tribunal I had set up, I had to go before it. And that was hard. That was so scary. So what I learned, really, I mean, you get over it, actually. One person said something that stuck in my mind that really hurt me, and he was very senior. He said to me, I knew a person X who was in government, and he had to resign, and that's all people ever remembered about him. And that kind of got into my brain. And I thought, oh my God, is that the only thing people will ever remember about me, in politics? Not that I care that much about legacy, I don't. But so I learned, like, resilience. I have very supportive family, very supportive husband. Friends were brilliant. And I just got through it, I think I think I am resilient. I must be. I think if you survive in politics and you stay in politics, you have the ups and downs of politics. I think I'm fairly determined, and it kind of just helped me through it. That combination of some very high level support, people who reached out to me in different arenas. Can we do anything to help? Okay, have a look at this legislation. Will that help you, defend? But at the end of the day, Brian, nothing makes up for, retiring from a job you loved at the height of your career. Nothing. But then I decided to go for Europe. In fact, it was Leo who encouraged me. He said to me, "Are you interested?" And I said, "No, I haven't even thought about it." Then I went home and I said, "You know what? Maybe I will think about it." And there was a sense of getting back my public reputation. Yeah. I got thousands of votes, tens of thousands of votes in Dublin. And everybody, they were queuing up to talk to me in Super. The public are very sharp, They knew it was a political episode. They knew there was no truth to it, actually. And they were literally, I was lucky. Some people don't get that. I was lucky I got re-elected again, and I had an opportunity to work in Europe for 5 years. So that was marvellous, because I loved it, and I had a very successful 5 years there. But it's very traumatic, I would not deny it. These kind of public events, people have written, or who've been in all sorts of scrapes and had to resign, or, were forced to resign, whatever. It's really, really tough. I mean, I just felt, it was shocking. I mean, it was more shock than anything, really, because it happened very quickly, yeah.
Is there any way to build resilience besides experience and having the air miles and to go through the ringer sometimes around then finding yourself in a similar situation again and having the muscle memory about what way not to do something previously because it didn't work out for you.
I'd say you get better at it, all right. But the problem is, you know, do you fall at the first fence or do you kind of keep going? I have seen some colleagues who've got very good, who've been in dreadfully hard situations, you know, where the whole tsunami is on them, and they have been able to fight back. But it's rare. It's rare enough because it's very hard in that particular kind of scenario. And you see it in other arenas as well. It can be very hard to fight back. And you really have to make very careful judgment calls about, you know, do you fight it or can you get through it? Is it worth, you know, will you win the fight? So it's difficult to know. Can you build it? I'd say people do, you know, especially in dealing with the media, people probably get better at managing it. You know, I did one interview, I really regret it because I wasn't properly prepared, but I was kind of pushed into it. And my advice to anyone out there talking about building resilience would be very, very careful in a crisis like that. What media you do? Not that it would have saved me, actually, wouldn't.
That it brings me on nicely to inquiring about that media component. When you're in various political roles, the media and public scrutiny is, I wouldn't say it's significant. I wouldn't go so far as to say, how did you enjoy it? How did you handle it? How was it a challenge to you? Was it something naturally?
What was very interesting is that I had a very good media experience for 4 years. This is way back when I was chair of the Women's Council. Mm-hmm. Anytime I was interviewed, it was totally positive. I went into politics and a week later they were giving out about me. So like as a politician, you were treated to a completely different view from the media. You're fair game from the minute you go into it. And most of the time, I did a lot of media. I do remember going out to Vincent Brown late at night to RTE, and one night I was driving home at about 11:30 or 12. I said, why the hell am I doing this? So I got a bit of sense, you know, but I took the media very seriously. I worked very hard when I was doing media.
So did you prepare a lot?
Oh my God, yeah. I never did any media without heavily preparing, but I did get caught that time in 2017, but I was kind of, politically, they just wanted me out there explaining. There was no explanation. We had a tribunal sitting, you know, but that was a bad decision, but that was the political sort of, you know, febrile situation. But I prepared very heavily for media. I would never do media without preparing. I take it very seriously, probably more seriously than some colleagues who were more relaxed about it. I was never particularly relaxed, but I always enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed, you know, I still review papers and do that sort of thing. But I do enjoy the media, but it's got incredibly tricky from a political point of view. It's very demanding. I think, you know, the gotcha phenomenon is very strong in sport, probably. It's very strong in politics. It's like the populist story in the headline is like obviously businesses that deal with reputation are managing this all of the time and advising people on the best steps to manage it. And you do need a lot of very good advice and you need trusted advice. You really need to know who you're talking to.
There's a real appetite for people to be outed and
there is
and cancellation.
Yes.
Is it it's a modern phenomenon?
I think it is. More so than ever. I mean, before when people were in that situation, I think they had actually done something wrong. Mm-hmm. Now you don't have to have done something wrong. It can be a nuance or a nuance that's put on a piece of information. I mean, every day, I could take up today's paper and show you a few examples where there's a nuance put on a particular piece of information that then becomes reputationally damaging. Mm. So I think you have to respect the media a lot, but don't ever expect, no matter what relationship you have with individual journalists or with a whole group, don't ever expect that they'll necessarily be even fair to you if you're in a crisis, because everybody rolls with a crisis. That's my experience. I was amazed at people who'd known me for 20 years. With a few exceptions, they kind of went with the story, you know, but it was a political story. Like it was opposition politics, you know.
Mm-hmm. Listen, it's been so great to listen to a wide-ranging, you know, topic over the course of your career of kind of current moments. I do want to find out a little bit more with some quick-fire questions, though, just about the Frances behind the politician. Okay, so first of all, talking about media. How do you consume it? What media do you consume?
Oh, I'm trying to, what's the word? Like an addict. I'm trying to move away a bit. I mean, I am a consumer of news. I watch television. I don't listen to as many podcasts as I'd like to, because I think that's more currently the way of digesting news. I mean, I read all the Irish newspapers. I online, I'd follow social media. So I would watch, I watch everything. I watch.
Enjoy social media?
You mean reading it, scrolling, or whatever?
Yeah.
Kind of mixed. I think it's very addictive, and I have to watch that. I'm like everyone else, I need to manage it a bit more. I think I'm quite fascinated by it, like so many people, and it's interesting. It's newsy, but I think it's quite hard to get the right balance. So I think I'm, probably trying to watch it, as indeed are current politicians trying to decide how to exactly manage it. But I watch Euronews, I watch Sky, I watch CNN, so I'm very interested in world and current affairs. So I think I'm fairly tuned into media in all its forms, really.
What's something you're looking forward to in the next year?
God, I don't know. What am I looking forward to? Well, I'm enjoying everything I'm doing at the moment. The various things I'm involved in, and all of those now, I really love, very interested in them, and they're very satisfying. So, like, more of the same, really. Just keeping good health, and I'm looking forward. I have 2 lovely grandchildren at the moment. They're 6 and 3, and I'm really enjoying them. They're at the stage now where they're just great fun, but I'm not a babysitter for them. But I love to watch their interactions. It's really super, and seeing them grow, it's really lovely, actually. I didn't think I'd ever be kind of saying that, because I used to get so irritated when people come, "Have you got any grandchildren?" It's like oppressive, and now that they're at that stage, it's very nice, yeah.
If you could switch roles with anyone for a day, who would it be?
That's a pretty impossible question. I mean, if I answered kind of with my political hat on, I'd probably say, which probably sounds a bit boring, and people are so critical of her, but I'm so interested in the European project. Ursula probably, just that level of influence with all the geopolitical contexts that are there at the moment and all, if I went on the kind of political route. If it was something else, I'd love to be able to sing. A singer, but I don't know which singer.
What's the one habit you think is essential for success?
I would definitely say, like, hard work and persistence, really.
What books are you reading, or what book would you recommend?
Well, I mentioned
you recommended.
I did recommend Anna Applebaum and Autocracy Inc. That's really good. I've just read Flesh. I was at my book group the other night, and we were discussing that, the Booker Prize winner. Like, I have very wide tastes. I mean, at the moment, I'd have, the current biographies that all our people like, Miriam and Terry and all these people have. I read very widely, My friend gave me a copy of a book about, which I'd say might be a bit heavy to get into, but it's about understanding the 1400 years of Muslims in Europe,
right,
which is kind of so relevant, actually, when you think about what's going on at the moment with Islam and Iran and everywhere. But I haven't got into that yet. That looks a bit formidable. So I'd sort of have lots of different types of books, Do
you read for pleasure, for escapism at all?
Oh yeah, I love getting into a novel. Yeah, I really do. I've read some very good books recently. I always have difficulty remembering them, but I can supply you with a list.
And then finally, what's one thing you're passionate about outside of work?
Obviously family. I mean, I'd say my friends. I'm very passionate about friendship, and it's meant a huge amount to me over the course of my lifetime. I think friends, I'm quite a social person, and I really, really value and love my friends.
That feels like a good spot to finish on.
Thank you, Brian.
Frances, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks
for being part of the series. It's been intriguing listening to you.
Thanks very much, Brian. It's a pleasure.